one and all, and listen to tales of excitement and adventure. Tales of daring heroes, savage monsters, and bards who just couldn't keep it in their pants. Tales of friendship, nobility, drunken foolishness, and unforgettable fun. These are tales of role-playing games, fair listeners, and this is Rollin' Bones. My name is Ryan Howard, and I shall be your guide. Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to Danishes and Dragons, your RPG morning show here on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Central Time. My name is Ryan Howard, I am your host and king of the Boneheads, and I am enjoying some lovely, literally kick-ass coffee, because that's the name of the roast apparently. So, welcome to today's edition. Just so you guys know, I did not secure a guest for this week, so what I'm going to be doing is kind of getting ready for the flood of Kickstarter games that are going to be delivered to me over the next few months, because 2020 ended up being the year that I threw money at every Kickstarter that crossed my threshold. So at some point, Escape from Skullcano Island is going to show up, Deadlands Suede, Junksha, Slayers, and then IDW's Batman Oggs game. Those are all going to show up, and so I'm going to use Danishes and Dragons to kind of unbox those and take a look at them and review them. However, I do not have any Kickstarter games to open right now, so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to review a game that I recently acquired, not too terribly long ago, that has been recommended to me by my good friend Kyle Smith. You saw him on Danishes and Dragons a while back, and if you remember, he was running a space campaign. And he was doing that in Spaceships and Starwyrms, which is a 5th edition expansion by a company called HopePunkPress. And I was not able to find them on social media or anything like that. So if anyone knows kind of the people behind HopePunkPress, just kind of let them know I'm looking at their game and I'd love to talk with them. That would actually be pretty cool to bring them on and talk about it. But we're going to do a little review stream here just to kind of go over, what this game is, what it adds to 5th edition, what it takes from base 5th edition, and, what kind of fun can be had with Spaceships and Starwyrms. How does it stack up to other space offerings? I know the one that I really love right now, that I actually just played a little bit of last night, is Star Trek Adventures by Modiphius. I've got that book sitting over here. I'm not going to go grab it because that makes for bad streaming when I just duck off camera and go grab something, even for just a split second. Now, we are going to talk about breakfast here in just a little bit. Just one thing I want to address real quick. My hair. It's different because I'm getting it cut today. I don't know why I felt the need to address that. It's just I don't usually stream without product in my hair. Just didn't want you guys to think that I was slacking on you. I just don't like putting product in my hair before I get it cut, because then they've got to spray my head down, and it just makes for a more difficult experience for the stylist, so I just don't put anything in my hair on days where I'm going to get it cut. So, on the subject of breakfast, this morning I did not cook myself breakfast. Instead, I went and ordered from one of my favorite fast food breakfast places. Anyone who's watching this who's not from the southern United States probably won't have ever had this place. But this is Bojangles. I love Bojangles. Bojangles, for the longest time, was like my favorite restaurant. When I was younger, Bojangles was my absolute favorite place to eat breakfast. I don't know why it was my absolute favorite place. I'm not claiming that Bojangles serves the best breakfast ever made. They do have good biscuits, and they have great chicken. I think it was a lot of loyalty to the Carolinas, because for those of you who don't know, I'm from North Carolina. Not born, but certainly raised. And Bojangles is kind of a North Carolina institution. You know, we love our Bojangles in NC. It is one of the most important things that we have that we hold over other people. Specifically, you know, it was started in Charlotte. I know where the first Bojangles is. I've been by there. Not the nicest neighborhood these days, but, you know, I know where it is. It's near downtown Charlotte. And it's something that, you know, Charlotte has had since the 70s, I believe. And recently it's been kind of expanding into the southeast, and luckily enough, there are plenty of Bojangles here in Tennessee. I believe Tennessee was one of the first places that it expanded to. It makes sense that it would go Virginia to the north, South Carolina to the south, and then Tennessee to the west. But yeah, they've got the Cajun filet biscuit is kind of their crowning achievement. It's a fried chicken filet on a biscuit, and it's amazing. They've got these like tater tots, hash browns called Bo Rounds that are amazing. Their coffee's not great. Coffee's not what you're there for, though. So if you know, just take it home, make your own coffee. That's what I do. I don't judge fast food places by their coffee, though. I mean, typically, like, some places really try to play up their coffee, and specifically McDonald's, looking at you guys, at McCafe. When I was on Welcome to Rantyville, a great podcast for anyone who's not listening to it, the Ranty Bastard and Heather D, they do a great job with that show. You can find it on Anchor, which is where my Rollin' Bones podcatcher feed is hosted. But they just kind of talk about everyday life, and one thing that Ranty likes to do is just dunk on McDonald's coffee. He likes to call it McNasty. And to be honest, he's right. I mean, you're better off going to any of the number of kind of higher quality gas stations to get your coffee. In the South, you know, we've got Quick Trip, except in Tennessee, Grumble, Grumble, Grumble. But then there's also, you know, Thornton's has good coffee. Wawa has good coffee. 7-Eleven has good coffee. Just any big gas station. Sheetz even has good coffee. You can get good coffee from a gas station for far cheaper than you can get it from McDonald's. If you want like your bargain basement Starbucks drinks, though, you might be able to get one at a gas station. I've never tried like a gas station Frappuccino. I've never been to a gas station that has Frappuccinos. So your mileage may vary there. But really, it's not all that more expensive to go to Starbucks. The line just might be shorter at McDonald's. And when all else fails, if there's an Einstein Brothers nearby, there's your silver bullet. They've got good coffee, too. So yeah, that is my treatise on fast food breakfasts. Aside from Bojangles, though, if I had to kind of do a tier list for breakfast, so, you know, I'm going to put Bojangles at S tier. That's, you know, that's a good breakfast. McDonald's is probably like a B tier breakfast. Their biscuits are actually decent, and I know some people like their and the steak bagel that they used to have. I know some people who love that. if you like breakfast burritos and McMuffins. You can do worse than McDonald's for breakfast, and it's better than their lunch or dinner. And then, let's see, Burger King. Burger King's like D tier. They are, that's not a good breakfast. I don't know why you would go to Burger King for breakfast. One place that has pretty good breakfast that a lot of people like to crap on is Hardee's. I actually really like Hardee's breakfast. I've had it a few times over the years. My grandparents used to take us to Hardee's for breakfast every now and then. Sometimes we'd stop there on the way to the beach. One of these days I'm going to talk about family beach trips on this show, just because I'm missing it. But, you know, Hardee's, it's not bad. As far as tiers go, I would probably stick that. I don't know. I think I could stick that in an A tier. I definitely think I could stick that in an A tier. That's fine. Taco Bell. Look, I have to put Taco Bell in like the bottom tier. I've never had their breakfast. I can't imagine it's any good. I think I tried to have their breakfast once, just out of like sheer morbid curiosity / morbid obesity. And yeah, that no, I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was just bored. I wanted to see what it was like. But no, that's got to be like F tier. And then Chick-fil-A. I think Chick-fil-A is overrated. I honestly do. And this is purely me talking about their food. I don't get into the politics of chicken. That's not something I like to talk about. You guys all pretty much know where I stand politically, and I really don't care what your politics are as long as your chicken's good. So this is not... Every time I feel like Chick-fil-A's brought up, someone's either got to like dunk on them for their politics or talk about, you know, how it's a good Christian company. And as you know, I grew up Christian. I am a Christian. And one thing that always annoys me is how people say I have to like something just because a Christian owns it or a Christian created it. And I've always been a bit of a contrarian. Those of you who know me are laughing now because you've had to deal with me being a contrarian. But anytime someone would say, "Oh, you know, it's the Lord's chicken," or it's you know, it's the best fast food restaurant ever. Okay, well, why is it better than Zaxby's? You're Christians. That's not an argument. So I've always, in my mind, I always drop Chick-fil-A about 2 tiers lower than they probably should be. But as far as breakfast goes, I think you can put them in the B tier. Maybe C, because their biscuits aren't as good. Their biscuits are sweet, which that is not a quality I want in my biscuits. Biscuits are savory. They should be buttery. They should be soft. Sweet? No. And then Crystal has to be F tier. White Castle too. I cannot imagine those are any good. Because, I mean, like, their burgers are, like, D tier. And that, actually, no, the burgers are F tier. I'm sorry. If you like your steamed sliders from Crystal or White Castle, sorry, they're not good. I distinctly remember driving... Oh, I was not driving. I was riding in the car to Dragon Con. One of the times that I went there over that long stretch that I was going to Dragon Con every single year. I missed that. I should get back on that. It's too close to Gen Con, though. And if I'm doing this, I need to go to Gen Con. Because it's gaming. And this is about gaming. Even though we're talking about food right now. But I remember riding to Dragon Con, and we stopped at Crystal, just for the novelty of stopping at Crystal, because we could. And then I ate Crystal. And then we got to Atlanta, and I pooped Crystal. That was an epic poo. If I ever want people to watch this, I should probably refrain from describing any poos as epic. But, said what I said. We're live. Alright, so, needless to say, there's a lot of good breakfast places out there if you're just looking for fast food breakfast. I prefer a sit-down breakfast where, I can eat good stuff and, have a little bit of time with my wife or with friends. To discuss, maybe even have like a beverage, an alcoholic drink. That's why my favorite place to get breakfast is McCreary's Irish Pub. You can't beat that good Irish breakfast. That's some good shit, I gotta say. But anyway, if you're looking for fast food breakfast, you're on the road and you pass a Bojangles, my recommendation. So let's transition to talking about Spaceships and Starwyrms. Before I pull up the PDF, just to kind of walk you guys through that, one thing I want to say, this book is big. It's heavy. And this is not a book that contains a complete rule set either. This is how thick this book is. This is like a textbook. And what it contains is you've got all the supplemental information just that comes with this being a new setting for 5th edition, new classes, new subclasses, spells, items, all that stuff. But you also have a setting for this particular series, which we'll talk about in a little bit. They did create their own setting. You've got a whole new list of species, your new classes. You've got tons of new equipment, spaceships, all kinds of detailed information about galactic standard time, galactic standard measurements. What to find, where to find supplies in space. And then, technology. And then you've got some, new rules that they've added. They've added hacking to 5th edition with this book. So technically, you could take Spaceships and Starwyrms, mix it with a little bit of D20 Modern, and you'd basically have a Cyberpunk 5th edition. Which I'll have to see how well their hacking rules work in person. I've not played this game yet, so I don't know, what happens at the table when someone's hacking. But if it works well, I don't see any reason why you couldn't use 5th edition with Spaceships and Starwyrms combined with some of the modern rules that they have at the back of the DMG to make yourself a Cyberpunk game in 5th edition. You might have to, create a couple classes. If you want to be a net runner, you might have to create that. Although there is a there's not a hacker class, but there's a roboticist and a scientist in this book. There's also a scion, which is interesting. I've been using specific scion rules made by DM Dave for Dark Sun, because scions are really important in Dark Sun. But, that's some stuff that you have here. But you also have not just regular combat. There's a new cover mechanic that they introduced here, which is important for ranged combat. And then there's also mounted combat and zero gravity combat and ship combat too. And then at the back there's a whole list of monsters and stuff like that. There's a conditions appendix, monsters. 5e monsters in space, which I'm gonna go flip there. I've not been to that part yet. I just want to see what we've got here. But yeah, your conditions are pretty much your 5e conditions, and then you've got some 5e monsters in space, which is cool. Because, I mean, you can definitely reflavor a bunch of 5e monsters to make them just, like, aliens. Especially aberrations. And this is one thing that I love about aberrations. You don't really know where they come from. 5e does not tell you where the aberrations come from. They come from another plane. So anyone who wants to throw a little bit of sci-fi into their fantasy, if you want your aberrations to come from space, that's pretty cool, you know? Like a Mind Flayer spaceship. I mean, they already kind of have that thing with the Githyanki, who have spaceships. It's pretty easy to do. You could pull that off pretty easily. Now, just looking at some of the examples they have here, I don't know. These are a lot of these are like monstrosities and stuff. They seem to have completely ignored the. Now, there's some aberrations in here. There's no beholder. I don't know why they didn't include the beholder. That might be a copyright thing. But you could easily have space beholders. In fact, if I ever run this for anyone, which I'd love to, I'd rather play in it. But I could definitely run this for someone. But if I were to run this, space beholders would definitely be a thing. So, I'm going to go ahead. They do have a recommended media thing, just before I close this up and switch over to the PDF. And I really do have to give them credit here, because there's a couple things that I love that they are recommending. The Aeronauts Windlass by Jim Butcher. I am a huge Jim Butcher fan. I didn't quite crack the Aeronauts Windlass. I need to give that a try. I think I left that book at my parents' place. So I might give that one a second go. It's a big book, though. And it's not the Dresden Files. And it's about teenagers. And anyone who knows me knows I don't like teenagers. I don't care about them. I didn't like being a teenager. I don't want to relive it. Even through some kind of like fictional world here. But then one thing that I really love that they included, they've got music that they recommend. And of course, you know, they're recommending Discovery by Daft Punk, Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. But then they also recommend 2112 by Rush. Yeah! I'm a huge Rush fan. In fact, those of you who've known me for a while know that for a long time, my first foray into broadcasting of any kind, me and then Brent Sello, my co-host at the time, we had a podcast called Digital Men, which was just about Rush. And it was pretty successful. We had, you know, several listeners. It was a good podcast. We burned through material very quickly because we did every single album, every single live album, and then a few interviews. But I mean, basically it was just kind of, it was fun. It was two guys kind of diving deep into Rush. Which at the time I think when we started I was like 19, maybe 20. And I had listened to a lot of Rush, and, you know, I knew that this band was important. I knew that I liked them, but I had not dug in deep, put in the headphones, and listen to every single album front to back the way I did for that show. So yeah, I'm a huge Rush fan. I saw them live once, and it was glorious. It was their last tour. And I was very lucky to see them live at all because now they no longer tour. Rest in power, Neil Peart. I can only assume that everything that happened this year happened because Neil died in January. Just getting my water ready. All right, so let's flip over to the PDF here so you guys can see a little bit of what this book looks like. Go over here. Fire. Alrighty. Let me go ahead and pull this thing up. So, got a cover here. Spaceships and Starwyrms. Nice little title there. You got a spaceship here. And, yes, this monstrosity in the background here, that is a starworm. Starworms are your kind of big, powerful creature in this setting. They're essentially space dragons. And they're like, the way they're described, they're like Jack Kirby creatures. They're really cool. I really have to applaud them on, coming up with the starworms. So we get past the title page here. So our designers here are Benjamin Quiggins and Audrey Stolz. I have not met them. I don't know them. I would love to talk with them, though. And then Kurt Ian Ferrer is the artist on that cover there, which is beautiful. And we've got a few other artists kind of throughout, including both Audrey and Benjamin. Did some interior illustrations as well. We'll kind of look around there. Some of the art in this book, one thing I have to say just off the top, some of the art in this book is a little hit or miss. Here you have the recreation of the front cover there. You guys can see more of it there. So yeah, this thing back here is a starworm. I don't know which kind of starworm, or I don't remember which kind. There's multiple different kinds. Like I said, they're space dragons. So, we've got our table of contents here, and we're going to go ahead and jump all the way to page 8. Talk about the Nakora Galaxy. So, like I said, this book contains not only the rules for play and, additional features and stuff like that, it also includes a setting. And I think there might be adventures available for this thing. Let me actually look that up real quick. Is this visible? Yes, it is. Okay, never mind. I'll look it up later. So there may or may not be adventures for this. If I have Ben and Audrey on the show, I will ask them about that. But the Nakora Galaxy is kind of your Forgotten Realms for this particular setting. This is your default setting. You've got this whole list of planets. We can go through. Some of these are pretty cool. You've got this one. Looks like it's a bit of an Earth analog. Domos Prime. Yeah. Yeah, that's your Earth analog. A lot of this stuff is really cool. It makes the book super long, and I imagine that this is a bit of a process for, a book that's being created like this. I can't imagine what the creative process was for this. Just coming up with this entire series of planets that cover basically 4 quadrants of this galaxy. I like this one a lot because this is your Kygor is your planet, an entire planet that's a city. It's your Coruscant, or your Nar Shaddaa, if you're a Star Wars fan. And there's something about that I just really love. Like, you filled an entire planet with a city. That's some dedication. But yeah, you've got like your ice planet, you've got your water planet, I imagine. There's tons of stuff here. You can go through all of this. And then once you get through the planets, you get into some factions, you know, the Domos Collective, the humans. And there's all kinds of, different factions at play here. Kagorian, Glabrow Conglomerate, a couple of the races band together and have this like business conglomerate that they run. Different empires, stuff like that. So yeah, if you're wanting to play within this setting, this is a lot of very helpful information. It's very, very in depth. You've got your space pirates here, of course, because you have to. And then here's where I'm talking about some of the art gets a little bit wonky. Because you've got your coalition headquarters, and I see what they're going for here. It's very impressionistic. It doesn't seem to fit with the rest of the book, though, in my opinion. You know, the small art here, some of it looks like this. Some of it looks a little bit more kind of Kubrick-y right here. You know, that's very, like, you'd see that in a magazine that had Ray Bradbury stories in it, this piece right here. That's very kind of old sci-fi. And then down here, you've got something that looks like it came out of a textbook, which you guys know how I feel about stuff like that. This here, too, textbook. This is pretty cool. Got like a moon with a world in it. They call it Moon World. Also looks like it came out of a textbook. I do like this kind of layout, though. These purple boxes. It's very clean, very clear, very easy to read. Textbook again. Actually, that's not necessarily a textbook. That's more your like Kubrick style sci-fi. Your 1970s or 1960s popular sci-fi. Not like pulp sci-fi, but like, something that Arthur C. Clarke or Ray Bradbury would have written in like the 50s or the 60s. And so here you get into a little bit of like the core system, which that's your quadrants. Closer into the core, that's where life-sustaining planets are, and further out, that's where your planets without your planets that aren't able to sustain life are kind of beyond the core. Frontier space, of course, you have to have uncharted space where crazy stuff can happen. And then we get into calendar and timeline. This goes through the history if you want to know that kind of stuff. It looks like we're in 1079 NC. And then you've got your 15-month calendar. All of them are named. Apparently days are 5 days, or weeks are 5 days. And then you have your holidays. It's cool that they put all this in there. And then you also have an explanation of each holiday, which also very good. Very in-depth. And you've got regions. And then you have deities. Because you can be a space cleric. Which is just cool. At that point, it's like you're worshipping Darkseid. Or the gods of New Genesis. Or even like your like Bajorans would probably fall into the realm of space cleric. So yeah, that's something cool that you can do. And then you've got understandings of magic here. You can use magic. You can be a space wizard too. And so yeah, it seems like everything they've kind of scientified magic here. Like arcane magic involves interacting with dark matter, which again, that's cool. Do what you can there. Scions, they introduce, like your scion magic. I did the Sean Spencer. I've been rewatching Psych recently, so. And then, there's techno magic. Because of course there is. You have to have a technomancer. That's the way it works. And then you talk about dimensions a little bit, and I'm going to skip through a whole bunch of this and move on to playable species. Because you can use there are these new species in this book. I think the authors are wanting you to kind of back away from your typical elves, dwarves, humans, halflings, that kind of stuff. And they've kind of replaced them with space races. Now, obviously, because this is 5th edition, as a GM, if you want space elves, you can use space elves. But some of these races are actually pretty cool. The Bravash is the first one that we get to. These guys are cool because these are basically your Dragonborn. These are your space Dragonborn, and they are literally the descendants of the Starwyrms. Like, you're playing as a larval starworm, essentially. And yes, you did begin life as a worm. And so basically, they're like the curators of arcane magic. Essentially, they're descendants of the Starwyrms. You've got some example names here. And then your ability score bonuses, kind of the bread and butter of races in 5e. You get a bump to your strength, constitution, and wisdom. You can be either medium or large, because they range from about 7 to 9 feet tall, and you can weigh up to 1,000 pounds. And then you can live up to 500 years before you have to form your cocoon and turn into a starworm, which is cool. That'd be really cool to, like play a super old Bravash that's like, I've only got a couple years left before I need to cocoon myself. So this is going to be my last ride. Or if you were doing like a one-shot with epic level characters, you're a Bravash and you're like, I'm towards the end of my life cycle. Next week I'm due to cocoon. Let's go out with a bang. Let's do one last kind of epic thing before I ascend and become a space baby. Your speed's 30 feet. Galactic is your common, galactic basic. You probably have determined that. And then you get a +1 to your AC because you have scales. And then, let's see, you are resistant to force damage, which is cool. And then one sorcerer cantrip of your choice. Once you get to 3rd level, you can use Tensor's Floating Disc. And then at 5th level, you can cast Levitate. And those are both like once per day things. Wisdom is your casting modifier for those spells. So that's pretty cool. You get you basically get Magic Initiate for free. And then you can also use your claws as melee weapons to deal 1d6 slashing damage. So if you're a Bravash monk, that's pretty sweet. That gives you a leg up on your unarmed strike. Which is something that, at early levels you definitely need. You definitely need a bump to your damage doing an unarmed strike as a monk. Then we have the Easonites. The Easonites are also really cool because these people are living flame. That's again, this is some straight up like Jack Kirby. I want that on a blacklight poster. And these creatures are basically a result of a dark matter energy storm hitting their planet. And, they orbit a white dwarf star. It's closer than, sustainable life would allow for. Um, but somehow, in spite of all of this, life persisted, and you're basically living fire. You're essentially a fire ganassi, but a little bit more psychedelic. And then your color of your fire can vary, so you can be like a green fire person, which is cool. And your height can be as small as 3 feet, as tall as 9 feet. And then you've got, your flame hair like Firestorm. And you only live at most 50 years, which is cool, to be a little bit more of a short lived race. That's something I really like about the Thri-kreen in Dark Sun. Your oldest Thri-kreen lives to be maybe 20 because they're bug people. And, bugs have a short lifespan. So, stuff like that. Stuff like that's really cool because so often uh, there's this problem of these long-lived races in D&D where, you're playing an elf or a dwarf and you can start out being, like, okay, this elf is 200 years old. You're starting at level 3. Like, what'd you do for 200 years, buddy? But still, there is some, like, cool stuff that can come out of being a long-lived race. I definitely think it's cool, especially if you're starting at higher levels, to have like an older character in the party. You guys know me. I love playing my old man characters. I routinely will play characters who are human, who are like, I don't know, between 35 and 50, which is not like old. It is on the older side considering like a medieval world, but still, D&D, there's healing magic, so I imagine lifespans are higher in Forgotten Realms than they are, say, on Earth in the Middle Ages. But yeah, I like to play older characters. I think it brings something to the party. Um, it allows for me to do a little bit more in-depth stuff, and it just lets me be Cable. Because honestly, it's this concept called old man strength, which a lot of guys love. I heard, I don't remember which writer it was talk about it, but one of the comic writers who wrote a lot of Cable talked about how guys love like old man badasses like the Punisher and Cable, because we like the idea that when we're old and grizzly, we'll still be strong and world wise and just kind of badasses with gray hair. It's something that a lot of men love and aspire to be, and I in particular love kind of the older character who's been around the block a little bit, but can still hang with the young guys. It's kind of my favorite character trope, honestly. Then character trait wise, you get a dexterity score increases by 2, and then either intelligence or charisma you can bump by 1. There's a lot of modularity with these races. You're not necessarily locked into, okay, if you want to play a charisma class, you need to pick this particular race. It seems like there's a lot of choice in these races, which is cool. And then apparently, the Ezonites are born with adult intelligences and bodies, so they live 30 to 50 years. So basically, you can be like a 2-year-old and be ready to adventure. I'm going to take a quick break here in just a little bit. Or actually, I'm going to take a quick break right now. I'll be right back in just a few minutes. I just need to run for 1 second. And I'm back. Thank you for holding on there for me. Just had to make a quick stop there. And yeah, so we were talking about the Easonites. Let's go ahead and speed this up a little bit. Then you have the Glabrow, who are your cat people. One thing that's interesting about these guys is they are basically from a very harsh, hard to sustain life on planet. And because of that, in order to make like space travel possible, they have had to become like engineering geniuses. So you're a cat person slash engineering genius. That's a very Tumblr combination, in my opinion. But it's there. It's there if you want it. And you can add to your strength, dexterity, or constitution. You choose two of those and increase by 2, and then the other one you increase by 1. Oh wait, no, you choose 2, and one is increased by 2, the other's increased by 1. So oddly enough, these engineers, these extremely intelligent engineers, don't get a bonus to intelligence. You get a bonus to either strength, dexterity, or constitution. Okay. Sure. And you're, like a carnivore, slow metabolism, kinetic mind. Again, you have a kinetic mind, so you're adept at mathematics and problem solving. So you can, I guess this lets you make a dexterity mechanics check instead of wisdom. So that's cool. I guess I understand why they aren't giving you a wisdom or intelligence bump. If that's the case, it just seems a little intelligent. I just ignore that. I'm weird. Anyway, so now you have the Hanadarians. These are like your space elves slash tieflings. And I love these guys because their highest virtue is beauty. And the text makes a point to say that they are fashion over function. And these people also there's this kind of unspoken rule of magic in this world that you mix magic and technology at your own risk, basically. And the Henadarians basically throw that out the window. I love these people. They're all beauty and recklessness. And so you get to choose from intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. Or you choose 2 from that list. Add 2 to the first one and 1 to the second one. These are your like tall, thin people because you go from 6 to 8 feet and you can only weigh between 90 and 150 pounds. And you can live for 300 years. So yeah, these guys are. These are your space elves. Then you have humans. Humans are cool. It's always good to have humans, and then human traits. Interestingly enough, I would allow people to use the variant human, but this book has a different kind of base human than is typical in 5th edition. This human only gets to up 3 ability scores by 1 instead of the usual where your base human gets to up all of their stats by 1. So I'd be interested to see kind of why they changed that. It's not really that OP. Honestly, there are other things from other races that you don't get as a human. that make kind of that +1 to everything, or even the extra feat. In some cases, not worth it. For example, if your campaign goes underground and you're anything but a Gloomstalker or a Warlock, Warlock, not having dark vision as a human is going to kill you. It's going to be difficult. So you either have to burn a spell slot to cast it, or you have to like get some kind of magic item, or just carry a torch, which means you can only have one weapon. No shield, no 2-weapon fighting, and no archery. And then you have the icks. You always have to have bug people. As a big fan of the Thri-kreen, you always have to have bug people. And, they're your typical space bugs. They're tinkerers because they've got little dexterous hands, which is cool. And then this one you can up Dex, Intelligence, and Charisma through human-sized. These guys kind of like the Thri-kreen. You typically only live about 60 or 70 years. Apparently the oldest recorded Ix was 93. You have a flying speed, which is cool. You've got wings. But your base walking speed is only 25 feet. And you have to have a, they call it a Babel implant, or a Babel implant, that allows you to, like, speak human languages, essentially. And so you can, like, download other languages, and you can speak them, not necessarily read them, though. Which is cool. It's a nice thing, like, technically you can communicate with anyone verbally, but when it comes to, like, quest items and stuff like that, you can't read. Which, that's a good compromise. And then you have proficiency in perception because you've got 270-degree vision. And 4 arms. Then you have the Kygorians, who are, this is kind of like 2 races, which are the Kygad and the Kirov. And they, like, split into 2 groups. So the Kygad burrowed underground, and they are basically your gnome type. And the Kirov are like your orc type almost. So it's cool how, like, the 2 races diverged. That's really cool. I like that. And these are the people on the city planet. And so you've got your different splits for your Kygorian and Kirov, or your Kirov and Kygad. So your intelligence goes up by 1, and then depending on which one you pick, if you're Kirov, your strength goes up by 2. You're taller, that kind of stuff. Resistance to cold damage. And then the Kygad, your dexterity goes up by 2, and you have dark vision. It's interesting in this particular game. The Kygad are the only ones I've seen that have dark vision. I guess that's not really much of a factor in this game. It's easier to, like, have a light on a helmet or something like that. So I understand why they would do that. And then you have the Luan Tua. These are like your Asimir, your angels. They have wings, which is cool. You can't use your hands while flying. I guess, yeah, like your wings are connected to the underside of your arms. That makes them a little bit less OP. Because the second you give, like, a low-level character flying, If there's not something that limits their ability to use their hands, they basically become a bomber at that point. You give them a heavy crossbow, and they're basically just flying over. Do 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 do. We actually had to tell Piper in the original campaign that he could not have the boots of flying. I think that's the item. He couldn't have the magic item that let him fly because he could cast greater invisibility and then either use his 2 crossbows, or at some point he ended up with a fireball just through. This was at higher levels, but we told him that at that point he'd basically be a stealth bomber, which he thought was cool, but Muhammad was not about to have that, so we put the kibosh on that. That was one of those moments where we talk about that with David Holland. It'd be, can I do this? No. Why not? The rules say this, but it would be cool. It was one of those conversations. And technically there's nothing against the rules about doing that. It's just kind of it's just kind of cheese-tastic, really. And then you have the Mashar. They're like your plant people. That kind of looks like She-Hulk. And you've got a couple different varieties of them. Dexterity and charisma. They're shorter. Then you have the Peranthe. They're like your fish people. They also have dark vision. I guess their legs come apart and those flippers become feet. Yeah, they've got a gel form, which is weird. Oh, that gives you fins, basically. The gelatinous excretion. That's great. I love stuff like that. Gelatinous excretion. So it's pretty cool. Then you have the proxy. These are your Warforged. Only they're like true robots. Then you have the Saguaran, who are cactus people. Which is just kind of fun. I love it. Cactus people. That's great. And they're nomads. Apparently their planet's gone. So these are like your halflings. Your cactus halflings. Then you have the Wireborn. And these are like cyborg people. So like something like Wireborn, this is where I could easily see this kind of turning into a cyberpunk game. And you could easily be a Wireborn and kind of make it like a street samurai type character. It allows you to kind of choose your previous ancestry, and that gives you different different aspects from the species that you choose. That's really cool. I like that. That's cool. And you have the Wuther, which that looks like Earthworm Jim, but with one eye. Looks like you're a one-eyed dwarf, which is kind of cool. And now you have classes. These are some of the classes that you can get. And they have, it's like new classes, augmented classes, and then new archetypes for different classes. So I can kind of take you through these one by one. The Marshal, this is like your old Warlord class from 4E. And this is something that I feel like has been missing from 5th edition. I know people hate 4E. Well, 4E's divisive, I'll put it that way. But one thing that was cool about 4E was the Warlord. And I know it's kind of sort of in the Battlemaster Fighter, But the thing about the Battlemaster Fighter is there's a couple things you can do to kind of buff your party, but it's mostly just like strategic combat. I think of the Battlemaster Fighter as Deathstroke, in that you know all these different tricky ways to like fight your opponent. Whereas the Warlord, or in this case the Marshal, that's like your commander. Most of your abilities are like, you do this, and you can grant people attacks or buffs or stuff like that. And so having something like this added to this particular game, this is cool. I like it a lot. It allows you to kind of be like a Commander Shepard or like a Malcolm Reynolds type. When I was thinking about joining Kyle's game, which, maybe someday I'll be able to do that, but for the time being, I can't. They're playing on Wednesdays. I play Dark Sun on Wednesdays. But, this class is what I was thinking about playing, and it's pretty cool. You're basically a fighter with some additional buffing ability. So I can show you, like, you're proficient with all weapons, all armor and shields. And you get a fighting style, which I was going to go with, I think, marksmanship. And then you've got a strategic action, which allows you to use the help action as a bonus action, which is cool. And then you can use your bonus actions to allow a willing, friendly creature who can see or hear you to use dash as a reaction. And you've got Tactician's Prowess, which these are like your superiority dice as a battle master. And they basically give you different ways, like, as a bonus action with Defender Stance, you expend a Tactics die, and you take a stance against a creature within 5 feet of you. And until your next turn, as long as the creature remains within 5 feet of you, anytime it makes an attack roll against a creature other than you, it subtracts the amount equal to your Tactics die from what you hit. So basically it's like a distraction. It's, hey, over here. It allows you to tank better, which is cool. Guided Strike. You can forgo one of your attacks and use a bonus action to direct an ally to attack instead. And then the creature can use that reaction to make one weapon attack or cast a cantrip, gadget, or knack that requires only one attack roll or makes a single hack action. And then they add the Tactics die to that damage. And then you can expend an initiative dice. And you can select a number of friendly creatures up to your intelligence or charisma modifier. And then you basically add that Tactics dice to the initiative. That's pretty cool. See, this is the kind of stuff that I like about this, is you get to kind of help out your party as well as just being a tank and, laying down fire. It allows you to. It's kind of like being a cleric who can't heal. But you can also kind of, put out some damage, and you get an extra attack at 5th edition. And then you've got, teamwork maneuvers. And there's opening volley here, which you can get at 6th level. If you attack on a creature or spaceship or vehicle that hasn't acted yet, you can roll a Tactics die, add the result to your damage. And until the beginning of your next turn, whenever you or another friendly creature who can see or hear you attacks, it does so with advantage. Which is cool. It's like, firing off a tracer round or something like that. That's great. And so you've got different paths of affinity, commander, not pomander, guardian, herald. Herald is kind of like, if you want that healing. And then commander. Commander's a little bit more like tactical. And then guardian, that's like your frontline commander. Or, sorry, commander's frontline. Guardian is like alongside. Guardian basically makes you paladin. Just without smite. Then you've got the oracle. And oracles are like divinely cursed, which is cool. It's another kind of spellcaster. Seems to be like a warlock replacement almost. Although again, you can play a space warlock. Only it's wisdom driven is the only difference. So maybe it's more like maybe it's more of a druid replacement, because I can see being a space druid would actually be pretty difficult, because a lot of this is very very technology based and not so much about like natural stuff. So wild shape would probably be a little bit difficult. And I know I'm moving kind of fast here. We're running up against time, and I want to see how much of this we can get through. It's a big book. It's a big, big book. So get through all of this. Then you have a scion. Basically, the scions have implants, and it allows you to do like psychic stuff. And you've got knacks, which are like cantrips. You could probably port this over. I'd have to kind of look into this deeper, and I wouldn't force my 2 scions and Dark Sun to respec. But you could probably use this for Dark Sun. I don't know of any reason why you couldn't. You just have to reflavor some stuff. In fact, if I look at it, it's probably very similar to what you offered in DM Dave's Dark Sun. I'll just kind of roll through here. You've got some psychic powers that they mention. Roboticists. These guys have mech suits. And you build like a robotic companion, which is cool. And so this one you're kind of like... Actually, this one's entirely focused on like having a companion. This is like your Beastmaster Ranger with a robot. And so it's all kind of focused on, buffing your robot, it seems. And you get gadgets. So we'll get through this. What do we have? And then you have a stat block for your robot companion. That's a lot to manage, but I can see it being pretty cool. I like that. And then you have scientist. That seems pretty self-explanatory. They're technological spellcasters, which is interesting. And you're able to get a signature weapon, which is, let's see what that's about. Signature weapon. At 3rd level, you construct a special weapon that's unique to you. And you base it on a simple weapon. And it kind of like levels with you, which, that's cool. It's like your packed weapon as a warlock. So yeah, being like a technomancer is really cool. I'm all about that. Let's make sure I didn't skip anything there. Keep on rolling down here. You can pick medicine. And then there are augmented classes, which I guess the adept is your that's your kind of like remake of the monk for more of a sci-fi setting. That's what these classes are. And kind of change around what you can do. So this is basically a monk, but reflavored. And then the other one, let's keep going, past the monk stuff. Vanguard. So I guess Vanguard is like a... Vanguard seems to be yeah, they are space barbarians. Which, again, that's awesome. Space barbarians. I would argue that things like John Connor, or not John Connor, John Carter of Mars, stuff like that, Zardoz, that makes a space barbarian viable just by itself. But if that's not kind of the game you're playing, then yeah, you'll need the Vanguard. The Vanguard's cool anyway. And then there's some changes to, starting equipment for these classes. And then Bard, you can be College of the Diva. Basically make yourself a K-pop star. And College of Investigation. So basically, that's like... You're like a rock star, but also a private eye, which, that's cool. That's awesome. I love that. And then Fighter, you've got some other archetypes here, or other fighting styles, like Barrier Expert, Cover Shooter, which we'll get to the cover mechanic here in a little bit, Heavy Gunner, Marksmanship, and Weightless Mastery, because there is zero gravity combat. And then you have Crack Shot, which is like your... that's your gunslinger type, which is cool. And then you've got the Myrmidon. And I guess this kind of allows you to be like... It sounds like you're John Wick almost, but with a sword. You're basically more of a ninja, because it basically makes fighting with a sword viable in a combat system that relies heavily on guns. Because it basically gives you a keen eye. That's, again, really smart. I like that. And then you've got paladins. Let's see what kind of oaths they've got. You've got a couple different options here. This is kind of just like a rewrite of Paladin here. Then you have the Oath of Exploration, Oath of Preservation, and Oath of the Unknown. And those basically kind of, expand to like space and different things that can happen in space. It's cool that it's like either you want to seek out new life or protect what's already out there, or just kind of see what's in the vast voids of space and bring the light of your god to them. That makes sense, and that's cool. And then rogues. This is where hacking comes in, because hacker is a subset of rogue. And so here we'll see what kind of hacking you can do. Oh, also mechanic. You can be a mechanic. And then, of course, with sorcerer, you can be a cosmic sorcerer. And an eclipse sorcerer. And an eldritch sorcerer. So basically, you can be Doctor Strange or Adam Warlock or like Cthulhu, which is cool. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And then magnetism, apparently. That's you can manipulate magnetism. Okay, you can be Magneto. That's awesome. And then you've got some new backgrounds, just kind of around space, alignments, heights and weights, an exploration of sexuality and gender, if you care. A lot of that stuff I don't feel like needs to be addressed in the book. It's fine that they put it there. I don't care if they do. But most of that stuff is handled at the table. Because I know there's a lot of people out there who, no matter what the relationship type is, there's a lot of DMs who say, I'm not going to have sex with you. And so, like, role-playing romance, unless it's between two consenting party members, a lot of times just kind of, it's implied. You can do something with it. Honestly, unless everyone at the table is down for it, there's something a little bit weird about seeing two characters or one of the PCs and the DM like flirt with each other. It's the only thing about role-playing that's ever made me self-conscious, is when I've had to like role-play out flirting. I kind of push it back a little bit because I don't want to break immersion. But as a DM and as a player, all that kind of stuff really just kind of... I don't know what it is, but it makes me a little bit uneasy. It's a little bit weird. And I think what it is sometimes there is this possibility that the lines could be blurred. Because a lot of times stuff will happen in-game that if you're not very mature about it, can make it out of game. Like if you kill someone's player character in kind of a cheap way, that's probably going to leave the table and blow up in your face. And that can easily happen with like any kind of sexual dalliances you have with your RPG characters. If someone's not into it, or, like a lover spat happens between two characters who were involved, that can very easily turn awkward IRL. And so my policy is, it can happen at the table, you can do whatever you want. It can get a little bit weird. I recently did a role-playing session with one of the guys in the Dark Sun game, and he was like seducing one of the PCs, and he's playing a female character seducing one of the PCs, or not one of the NPCs. And it ended up being fine, but the whole time I was a little bit uneasy, like, what's gonna happen here, and he handled it well. So I don't have any ill will towards him. If it's gonna happen that way moving forward, it'll be fine. I'm still not great with it, not comfortable with it. But if a player wants to romance one of the NPCs or one of the PCs and everyone consents, I'll roll with it for a little bit, just as long as it doesn't get graphic or awkward. Anyway, stuff like that always just makes me think, approach that kind of role play with caution. And obviously it's your character. You can choose whatever sexuality you want or whatever gender or anything. There's no bonuses or detriments tied up in what your gender is anymore. So rules-wise, it's fine. Just role-playing wise and wanting to play whatever you want, also, it's fine. Just make sure everyone at the table is kind of clear on what, like, your level of your level of sexual roleplay, what that's going to end up being. It's like anything. You have to make sure everyone's good with it. Because if you're sitting there and basically describing, like something you could watch on the internet very easily instead of playing RPGs, at that point, you know, again, unless everyone's into it, that's too far. So yeah, approach sexuality with caution at the RPG table, unless that's what you're there for. So yeah, there's that. And you got some languages which are tied up in the different races, written languages too, and then you have backgrounds kind of made for space. They have a bounty hunter one, which is cool. Bounty license, cryo sleeper, which is always cool. Nice frozen man story. Deep spacer. Basically, you're a space trucker at that point. Famed. I guess there's a reason to have famed be separate from like folk hero. Fugitive, always cool. Linguist. I don't know why that's not already a thing. And mechanic. And naturalist. Occultist. Physician. That's one compliment I'll definitely pay this book. Some of the stuff that's in here feels like it should be in 5th edition. Like having a linguist and a physician, that should definitely just be a background in base 5e. I understand why it's not, but still. Test subject. I like that. That's great. I escaped from a lab. Wanderer. I feel like Outlander kind of covers that, but maybe this is an updated list. Excuse me. And this can take the place of Wanderer. Wealthy. Again, sometimes I feel like this is covered by what you roll for starting currency. I don't know that that needs to be its own background. Zealot, that's cool. And then you've got your leveling, prerequisites, multi-classing, all that kind of stuff. Class features based on multi-classing. And then feats. You've got some new feats here. Artful Fighter, Cover Mastery, Heavy Gun Mastery, Duck and Cover. All kinds of cool stuff. I'm not going to go too deep into these because we're, again, running out of time here. And there's some altered feats here. And then you have equipment, galactic credits. Credits are listed as CC. That's your, this is your currency. It seems like that's the only real currency here, which is, it simplifies things. It definitely does. And then you've got your armor, which is just kind of, variations. I love that you can have like thrusters that are, spaceable. I imagine that means, like you can breathe in space, which is cool. You can do like a moonwalk. And again, they mentioned zero gravity combat, so going out into space in your armor, that's pretty cool. So yeah, thrusters allow you to propel yourself in zero gravity. You can't fly. But they do They do negate the penalties of zero gravity combat, which we'll get to. Resist ballistic damage. And yeah, Spaceable lets you go out in space. And there are shields that can be planted and like used as a barrier. That's like a SWAT shield. That's cool. And then it just explains kind of, what basic armor and light armor. It explains what all the armors are, which is cool. Carbon fiber, that's awesome. Power suits. Battletech suit. It's the best armor. It's a military grade security suit. And you've got your shields, headgear accessories. And you can modify your armor with jump jets. And give yourself a jump pack. Mag boots. Stick to the side of a ship. Vice grip gloves. I imagine that helps with grapple checks. Personal energy barriers. And click seal helmet. Communication units, yeah. All that cool stuff. And then you get into weapons. And here you've got your typical simple melee weapons, your martial melee weapons. And that's what's covered here. This is all like stuff that you see in stuff that you would see in 5e. Some of it's been kind of reflavored. There are plasma weapons too, which is cool. You have to have that. And then you've got some ranged weapons. You've got your ballistic weapons and your laser weapons. Or plasma weapons, rather. Most of your like ballistic stuff, your submachine gun, shotgun, that's simple weapons. And then you get into like automatic weapons here. And plasma rifles or beam rifles, which is a plasma rifle. Plasma Annihilator deals 6d6 plasma damage. It's basically a fireball launcher. I love that. Sniper rifle, 4d6 piercing. Then you have AoE weapons and special weapons, which are listed here. These are AoE weapons. So you've got your grenade, which anyone can use, and then explosives, flamethrower, grenade launcher, rocket launcher. And let's see what special special damage does. So let's see. I'm having trouble finding it, actually. Which I guess you can see... I mean, like a plasma rocket here. Or an explosive... Yeah, explosive rocket and plasma rocket. Explosive rocket deals 66 fire and 66 force, which is great. Plasma rocket, 15d6 plasma damage. Heavens to Betsy. I imagine that's mostly for ships. Like, I imagine that's probably your best application for that, because if you go back up here and look at the rocket launcher, um, you can't move and shoot at the same time, and reloading it requires a bonus action. So basically, you're stuck where you are. That definitely seems to apply to, like, if you're taking on a vehicle. Although I suppose if you fired that into a crowd of enemies, yeah, as a game master, you should probably limit the access to rocket launchers. Definitely don't let anyone start with that. That's whoo boy, yeah. And you've got some cyberware that allows you to get some bonuses, kind of like magic items. They cost additional currency. And like bone lacing, you get additional hit points. But you can't have it if you have cyber limbs. And then you've got computers, which are used for hacking. That's a whole rabbit hole you can fall down with stuff like this. It's one of the shortcomings of a lot of sci-fi games is it's very easy to fall down the equipment rabbit hole. And just focus on, oh, I need all this stuff, and, I'm keeping track of all of this hacking equipment and stuff like that. I think that's why fantasy has kind of persisted and will always be kind of the dominant role-playing genre, because sci-fi is a little bit more complicated. There's a lot more moving parts in sci-fi. Cool. So we're still on some equipment. Let's get down to some rules here. Vehicles. You can take a look at some vehicle stuff here. Vehicle combat, you can fire a weapon or activate something or dash with your vehicle, evade, or patch. And so there's race mechanics, which involve piloting checks, which is dexterity. It's kind of a simplified chase mechanic, but this is not Savage Worlds or Classified. It makes sense for 5e to have kind of a simplified chase mechanic. And then you've got some vehicle stat blocks for different vehicles that you could have. Trinkets. Keep scrolling. Here we go. Spaceships. You got some ship-to-ship combat. Let's see what we got here. You got different rules for single pilot and multi-crew ships. And so for initiative, every player rolls for their character, and then each ship will roll. And then at that point you determine, what kind of, what's happening where, how many people are on the ship. If you're piloting the ship, you can move the ship instead of yourself. And then there's spaceship collisions, of course. There's rules for that. And there's your different, attack, countermeasures, piloting, divert power, hack, help, open a line, overclock. This allows you to do, like, your Star Trek stuff. Open a hailing frequency, that kind of stuff. And there's explanations of this. It's a lot of, roll, add a modifier, because, again, 5th edition. So it's not going to be anything too complicated, which is good, because, again, 5th edition. And you can do tricks, which have different DCs associated with them. This feels a lot like Top Secret. Or not Top Secret, Classified. I'd be interested to talk with the designers and see if they are familiar with Classified. And then you've got spaceship building. I kind of skip through all this. You can, you build your own spaceship, which is cool. One thing you might notice here, there's a lot of text and not a lot of pictures. Especially down here near the bottom, which, honestly, I have to question that choice. There should be a lot more art in this book. And I know art's expensive, but still. That's one criticism I would level at this. It's very, very text heavy, not a lot of art. You need art on, if not every page, every couple pages, even just like small pictures. Because this is an RPG book. And there's a lot of people who will buy your book just because of the art. These are all different kinds of ships that I'm scrolling through. That's a lot of the space taken up by this, is stat blocks for these ships. Skills and ability scores. You've got different skills here. This is all handled the same way that 5e is. But some of the new skills you've got are computers, etiquette, history, mechanics, medicine, piloting, science, stealth. There's no animal handling, nature, performance, religion, or sleight of hand. I'm guessing that etiquette takes the place of performance. I'm not sure why they got rid of that. Because you can still play a bard. Although I guess bards maybe are different. So etiquette makes sense. And then you've got attack and, combat. It's 5e combat. Let's just get down to, piloting is a dexterity check. DC is situational. And then, let's see. Let's get down to the cover-based combat. Read a little bit about that. You got your spell saves. Where's the cover-based combat? What does cover do? Because they mentioned cover-based combat, but I am not seeing anything. I'm going to go up to the table of contents, and I want to find this cover-based combat. Which might be down after... Oh, here we go. Chapter 10, Combat. So we're going to go there. Yeah, so this is all, 5e stuff. Let's see. Yeah, that's all 5e. Flying, movement, free falling. And I'm going to cover zero gravity, and I'm going to cover cover here, and then we'll call it. I'll show a couple stat blocks too. So, taking cover is a bonus action. Basically, you hide behind stuff, and you can move while you have the covered condition, but you lose the condition if you move out of cover, basically. So you can take cover and move from cover to cover and still be covered, but if you take cover, fire, and then press forward, you lose cover. And we'll get to utilizing cover here in just a little bit. This is all standard 5th edition stuff. 2-weapon fighting. Melee attacks. Yeah. Here you get into hacking. Hacking's an action. And there's a whole different system with hacking. You choose, what you're trying to do, bypass, data feed, disable, that kind of stuff. And then you have to make stealth checks against, or an intelligence stealth check against security systems. Yeah, so that's a whole thing. It can get a little bit complicated, it seems, but it seems like one of those things that once you're down, like once you know it, it's easy. And then utilizing cover. You've got half cover and 3/4 cover and total cover. And then you get a +2 bonus to AC or Dex saving throws if you're in half cover. If you were in 3/4 cover, then you get a +5. And if you're in total cover, you can't be targeted or attacked. You do have a -2 or a -5 to attack, depending on what stage of cover you're in. And then each type of cover is immune or vulnerable to certain types of damage. So if you're under fire, you probably shouldn't hide behind glass. And you can destroy cover. Cover has an AC of 10. And you get into damage and healing, temporary hit points. Mounted combat, it's 5e, and then 0 gravity combat. And so basically there are hard points and soft points. A soft point can be pushed in 0 gravity, a hard point can't. But you can push off of it. And you can stop yourself with a hard point. And so if you make a ranged attack with a heavy weapon, you are pushed back 5 feet, which is cool. And if you make a melee attack, you have to take a DC 10 dexterity saving throw. And I believe the thrusters will negate kind of the movement penalties. And then you have full immersion network combat. And this is like virtual reality combat. And basically what it does is... Let's see. Yeah, your strength, dexterity, and constitutions are replaced by wisdom, intelligence, and charisma, respectively. Which is cool. I like that. So if you're a physical fighter, don't get in the network. And then you've got spells and inventions. And gadgets and stuff like that. We're going to skip past all of that. And then at the end, you've got some stat blocks. Cool. So now that we're at the end of kind of the overall, now we're at the end of the overall look at Spaceships and Starwyrms. Just some final thoughts here before I sign off. This is a really cool book. There are some design problems with it, namely the lack of art. I think it needs more art. The art's very front-loaded. Other than that, it's cool. It adds some stuff that base 5th edition could use. It makes for great sci-fi, and I would be happy to try it at one of my tables. I like it a lot, and I hope that I can talk to HopePunkPress at some point. It seems like Ben and Audrey really kind of had this figured out, and so yeah, I really like this particular game system. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. You can catch the replay on YouTube if you missed the live stream. Just so you know, next Saturday, I don't know what I'll be doing, but next Monday, we are going to be talking to the guys from the Wild Die podcast. So we'll be going back into Savage Worlds. You'll hear a little bit more about that in a little bit. You can catch this replay on YouTube, like I said. Thank you once again for tuning in. And whether or not you rolled a 1 or a 20, I'm so glad that you rolled your bones with me, Ryan Howard, and I'll see you next time.